puncture, but thank goodness you're quite right, John. Had he gone another couple of metres, it had been on the Nordschleife, it would have been a disaster.
We also haven't revisited the contact that was made at the first corner. I'm pretty determined that the rear left of
race that you've got a wet track, it's already a little bit tricky. How greasy is it, you don't know, and then there's a little covering of hail.
Up to fourth position, so Chris Haase, maybe with that mistake on the rolling lap ringing in his ears, dropping to fifth, make that sixth, because very late on the brakes is Kevin Estre in the Grello Porsche. He's up to fifth. Can it be one better as it's nose to tail ahead of him between Mercedes and Lamborghini? Out of the Goodyear Kera for the first time, and a spin for the Rover Racing BMW. Further back now, is that the 99 BMW? I think the one of Farfus got through. It is the sister 99 car, which has been left at the back of the field of SP9.
And one of the Fords, I think it was Frank Stippler, jumped out of line before we got to the start line. The start line itself has been moved closer to the first corner this season in all of the NLS Cup cars as we've had in the past here, but still a very handy field, and expect to see those cars somewhere in maybe the top 30, maybe even the top 20 by the time we get to 3 o'clock tomorrow. Another one of the irregularities here, but it's sensible. Those cars have started 3 minutes behind the first car that went across the line.
Tim Scherbart then leads them for Mullner Motorsport. Also in there is Manuel Metzger in the AT2 lead, so they're not all from Cup 2, but Manuel Metzger started the 632 Black Falcon Team Fanatec car. Off the road already is the 320. That's one of the 4 Motors concept cars that's going to struggle to get back on because nobody's going to give him a space. It's not like pulling up to a T-junction and hoping that one will give way. Another AT2 car for Henrik Boleslev, and he does get going now. Also in that lead gaggle was the sister Mullner car of Moritz Krantz to start, Luca Rettenbacher for Sante Royale Racing Team, and Philip Hamprecht in the RPM, the Tracy Crone car for RPM Racing.
So when we get to the end of the first lap for everybody, the times will be reset. So the third group goes through 6 minutes behind the leaders. They won't be 6 minutes down on the timing. It's very clever. So that's why some of these cars will get up. It's as if they all started together, but clearly we couldn't do that. My eyes did not deceive me, and the Group 1 start is under investigation. I saw a number of people breaking ranks early on. I think one was Frank Stippler in the Ford GT. It was down to the fact, as you said, Bruce, that at the front of the field there were a couple of people who just mistimed their application of the throttle, then had to come off or indeed brake.
It's the anticipation. You're trying to second guess in the field that's so close together in terms of qualifying. Big point for Mirko Bortolotti. Pole starter came in for those tyres, but I think he got out before the second pack of cars was released, so he just managed to buy himself some time.
Estre up to third place already in Grello. This is the 10-year anniversary of Grello for Manthey, that colour scheme. 20-year anniversary of their first victory, and 30-year anniversary of the first outing and the formation of that. Daniel Huncadella is looking back at Kevin Estre, Marco Mappelli, then Huncadella, Estre, Maxi Paul, Chris Haase for the Scherer Sport BMW with the brilliant bright white wheels that does make it look like a Tamiya RC car. I think that is absolutely superb. Then it's the Realised Condor Ferrari in 6th, just the one Ferrari in the race. Then KCMG with David Pittard, the 47 black, white and blue AMG. The best of the Mustangs is Frank Stippler. Stippy in 8th in the 64 car. Top 10 made up by Nicky Thiem in the Valkenhorst Aston Martin Vantage, the number 34 car, and Adam Christodoulou started the Pro Sport Racing Mercedes AMG GT3, the number 26. Here's the third set of cars to come across the line. I feel like one of those infomercials, but wait, there's more.
And you've got BMW 240i's then heading these off. Moran Gott in 195, the black and orange car, and Yannick Fubrich in the 650. They are both from the same class. They run on a control tyre as well. But then in behind, what you can't see is the Porsche Cayman of Alex Müller. And he now darts to the left-hand side. You've got another BMW for Aldrin Opran and Bastien Arend in a 911. It's a real collection of all sorts of things. that make up start Group 3. And 5 abreast, I would say, going into the Haug Hook. And one car really didn't get away too well at all, so almost nose-to-tail contact. Forget about track limits on this first run through the Haug Hook. You're kind of forgiven if you even left the complex and have to check back in again, which some did, as these mainly BMWs, actually. There's an Audi TCR car creeping through as well. VW Sirocco sitting right in the middle, a Cayman as well. So
yeah, that Sirocco was put to the back of the group, actually. They had some infraction earlier on in the weekend.
There's a super good progress, yeah.
The Super GR also in the mix there. In some ways, Bruce, this group of cars, maybe more than any other, certainly Group 2 and Group 3, really encapsulate the actions at the front with the pro drivers, and there's plenty of it as the Lamborghini goes past Kevin Estre for 3rd position. Wow, that was the Franz Conrad Maxi Paul going through. I think they traded a little bit of vinyl there, and that's the Winward Racing car right in front. So all 3 of them, 2nd, new 3rd and 4th, trailing the white and green Marco Mappelli driven Abt Racing car, but the battle is for 3rd place.
Well, that's already remarkable to see Kevin Estre being the hunted rather than the hunter, but at the end of the Dottinger Herd, that long return straight, that was the move. Clearly a lot of tow being collected by Maxi Paul in the Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini. Looking at back at it now from the number 3 Mercedes that has been pedalled very well and effectively by Danny Juncadella on the outlap. But even though the Lamborghini at the front of the field, Marco Mappelli got nearly 2.5 seconds clear. By the start-finish line, it was 1.7. The next timing sector, it's come down to just under 1.5 seconds, but still that green and white Lamborghini clear run into the Goodyear Kera, then the Mercedes, and again this is a wonderful mix, Lamborghini, Mercedes, Lamborghini, and you work on down through Porsche, Audi, Ferrari, Mercedes, Ford. That's what GT3 racing is all about.
More than 70 camera feeds for the TV broadcast this year. That includes the drones, the onboards, the trackside, and the heli cameras. Over 80 kilometres of cables, including a complete fibre loop around the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Another car in strife. No, that is one of the course vehicles, which caught me out. That's one of the Cupra Formentor VZs that are used as the course vehicles. So they've been having a look at something and are now pulled back in. Mappelli then in that car that I likened to a sweetie from my youth, the Pacer, the Chewy Pacer suite, or the Condor Airlines colours as well. It's been a good opening lap from Mappelli. It's not as if he's pulled away massively, JP, but at least he's able to pick his own lines and he's not worried about somebody right up his tailpipes. Well,
3 seconds after 1 lap of the Nordschleife is a huge bonus, and Juncadella is far more concerned about the whereabouts of Maximilian Paul, who's now got into 3rd position, courtesy of Kevin Estre's toe, that hole in the air that the Porsche was punching. Here are the cars that were going way too early and getting out of line. So, as I mentioned, you've got to go right through the grid hatchings as if it were a standing start, but the jump happened a lot before the red lights went out. Now, was there contact between the 2 Red Bull sponsored cars, Mercedes into Lamborghini? It was minimal, wasn't it? And possibly has dinged a dive plane on the front of that Mercedes, but that can be assessed during the first pit stop, which will arrive, by the way, as late as 7 laps into this opening stint, but some might choose to pit on lap 5 or 6. You're not allowed to refuel an SP9 car until you reach the end of lap 5. Let's just listen to hear whether there's any contact between Mercedes number 3 and the Lambo.
Yeah,
there definitely was.
And that's the tyre that got punctured,
well,
Johnny.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that was my
thought.
thought.
It needs.
So it wasn't necessarily the run over the curb at the Vidal chicane, but it's a dive plane into fresh, soft rubber and unheated rubber as well at that point. Meanwhile, the Bilstein Mercedes. Now, how did the BMW spin? The number 99 car of Dan Harper. That, I think, was all on his own. Just a tad wide coming out of the Goodyear Kera. He got a wheel up on that high curb, maybe just into the gravel, and the car rotated on him. This is further back in the SP9 opening group for Julien Rea. and Mauro Engel starting 25th in the number 80 Ravenel car. There was contact. There was contact. It was 3 into 1 not going on the exit of the hairpin, Bruce.
Yeah, the Porsche was the one in the middle, and that was the one that actually pivoted Dan Harper around. The Northern Irishman was just up on the curbing, the point at which the car is vaguely unweighted, and then just a little tip on the rear was round it went. But, you know, I expected 3x3 contact into the opening corner, so the fact they got through about 6 corners to get down to the Goodyear car means they were doing a decent job. But Marco Mappelli, he's grabbed his moment with one hand, and the replay there just showing the puncture setting in for Mirko Bortolotti just as he was about to turn on out of the chicane. Luckily, he could dive to his right and come round. There's the crew suddenly going, right, we're needed. Didn't think we'd be needed for quite some while, but for Bortolotti from the pole starting car, what a disaster. And again, that high up shot, it means the tyre was going down, and he really was lucky nobody was on his right-hand side there, because then he couldn't have turned across the track.
Well, I think Maximilian Paul had seen him, but Kevin Estre hadn't necessarily, because he was blinded by the Lamborghini. So there's Bortolotti trying to get in. You've got Estre. He had to wait for both of them, 2 abreast, to go past him on the right-hand side before the way was clear into pit road.
It was coming out of that penultimate corner on the Grand Prix circuit, the left-hander. I saw him spinning up that wheel, and I thought he was going to spin across traffic. It was a masterful piece of driving to catch that car and then to have the presence of mind to get that car into the pit lane. The number 40 BMW E89 Z4, this is one of the 2013 cars that are back. It's Peter Pusovac behind the wheel of this car. There's a couple of them in the race, and that car is smoking from the back. This is the Volker Strycek driven car as well. I can say that with some certainty because we've got the flap of the foxtail on the aerial. And those of you who know a little bit about this race will know that Volker has, well, many years ago, turn of this century, he was head of the Opel Performance Centre, OPC. I worked with him back in the UK as we're into traffic already, and he kept the Manta racing for a very long time in this race as the bright green and white Lamborghini goes through. That's the leader of the race going through, threading the eye of the needle, and somehow Marco Mappelli has managed to get through there. He's under pressure now from Danny Hunkadea, who's flashing his lights in the Red Bull liveried AMG behind him. This is the problem. Traffic giveth, traffic taketh away. It's taken away that 3 seconds, Johnny Palmer, that Marco Mappelli had at the end of the first lap. These cars that he's passing are still on their first lap, let's not forget.
Yeah, and second lap for the SP9, so they've caught the tail enders. Remember, which side do we go? It says Marco Mappelli. I tried to the outside, then realised the car in front he was trying to lap was going to go wide, and trying to do the Italian a favour, heading up to Brunchen. This is a famous spot for fans to come here on public days, actually, to see incidents.
The little red car.
Yes.
This looks like a police chase, particularly from the helicopter. It's as if...
They're all the police with those blue lights flashing in the windscreen.
Marco Mappelli's nicked that green and white Lambo, and everyone else is chasing him.
Yeah, it is astonishing, but you have to be super patient. And just remember, the job, if you're seeing this, you've never seen multi-class racing before, this is the problem. The speed differential is enormous, but it's not the job of the drivers of the slower cars to get out of the way. They just have to hold their line. And you saw a bit of guesswork there from Marco Mappelli. Do I go right? No, I've got to go left. But it's his job. Oh, and a little mistake there from Danny Hunkadea. He dropped back a little bit, and Maxi Paul went, thank you very much. I will be going through.
That's how you lose 2 places, though, Bruce. 2 wheels on the dirt. Hunkadea had lost all his momentum. And, of course, they're queuing up right behind him. This is the 5th placed Christopher Haase. But, yeah, the Mercedes just kicked up a bit of dirt, lost all its traction, and through went Kevin Estre and Maximilian Paul.
Yeah, you just... one little blink. So our race leader Marco Mappelli is here. He's shaping up which right side to go. And then at that moment, he thought, I might get round it. There wasn't an outside to conjure another phrase. Maxi Paul in straight past him. Kevin Estre too. And so Danny Hunkadea, who'd driven such a good opening lap, is suddenly going, great, but it will come back. But the Mercedes for now just losing position. But what an incredible overhead shot of Marco Mappelli going between 2 of the back markers who were minding their own business. There was, if he'd had any wider door mirrors, they'd both be gone now.
And the thing is that all of these drivers are having their own battle for class and or overall positions. More than 20 classes in the nearly 160 starters that we had here And let's remind ourselves, we're coming to the end of the second lap. We've had nearly 17 minutes of racing. We've said this all week. I'm saying it again for those of you just joining us. You have to cleanse your mind of everything. Already people coming into the pit lane from groups 2 and 3, the cars that are off the back of group 1 that have already done it, we had somewhere over 20 cars who have to serve a stop and hold penalty from anything from 30 to 45 to a minute, 30, 45 seconds to a minute for indiscretions, mostly speeding offences in the earlier sessions. They all had to do that at the end of their first racing lap. The problem being there, Johnny, is that there's some people were peeling off from groups 2 and 3. You had the front of the race with tyres up to temperature and pressure racing through them as they were turning right and drifting right to get into the pit lane to serve their penalties.
That's why those that know their way around this place, when they're coming out of Tiergarten and Hohenrhein, they find a car that's a little slower than them and they'll deliberately go to the left of it. You cannot be trapped on the right for fear of a car coming into pit lane and you being taken with it, basically. By the way, there is a rule about pitting this early on in an SP9 car that you can't fuel before the end of the 5th lap. You can come in to fix stuff, though, for fixing damage. And if it's a pit stop like that, you don't have to adhere to the minimum reference time either. We'll talk a lot about minimum pit stop reference times because it's not like a Formula 1 pit stop where you can pit as quickly as you wish. If you're fueling, you're dictated by the clock, but nevertheless, they're still pretty quickly in and out of pit road as this steady stream of GT3, or as they call here, SP9 cars, work their way off the Grand Prix track and through Sabine Schmidt's curve for the 3rd time. And a big gap growing now between the 2nd place car from Conrad, their Lamborghini, and 3rd place Kevin Estre.
Do you remember when I said take a deep breath? Let's just remind ourselves that we are only on lap 3 of a race that is going to stretch through the German countryside. This is more like the dawn of motor racing, the dawn of the automotive era. You are travelling through, around little villages and towns. The weather is going to play a part. Now, the mileage would probably take us from here to Paris and back on the country roads around here. We just happen to be going in a circle. But I always get the feeling here, Bruce, that what we are looking at is something that's more akin to those early long-distance point-to-point road races.
It does seem incredibly primal. These early laps are so difficult for all the cars in the field, from the slowest cars in the lowest class to the fastest in the fastest class, the SP9 class, because, of course, when they catch that 3rd grid of cars from this 160 car field, the first time they catch them, they are nose to tail, and every subsequent time they catch them, they're a little bit more spread out. So it's so critical. And that move we saw from Marco Mappelli not long after the carousel, diving between 2 other drivers who are minding their own business, and they can easily get put offline. And if you get a front-running car clattering into a car from any other classes, they will be come down, they'll have the weight of the law come down on them. They've been given considerable driver briefing. They have to get their ring permit to be allowed to compete in this race, to show they're capable of mastering the Nürburgring, mastering keeping out of the way. But it is a time of enormous jeopardy. What I'm looking for is not wanting, but looking for when the umbrellas going to start coming up in the crowd. We do have a rain cloud over each of the 24 hours of this race. For now, we'll take the surface being dry, but it's not going to stay this way.
With apologies to those of you who know all of the rules and regulations, we accept that there's a lot of people, just like the Le Mans 24 Hours, this might be the only Nürburgring race that you will watch all year for a variety of different reasons. JP, you mentioned the SP9s can't pit before lap 5 for service.
For fuel.
Yeah.
Fuel. You can for service.
Yeah, you can for fuel service is what I was about to say. So if you've got an issue or you want to change a set of tyres if it started raining or whatever,
yeah,
that you could do. You could even change a driver, but what you can't do is put the fuel hose in. At lap 5, the choice is whether you come in or not. It tends to be 7 or 8 laps on the first stint and then 8 laps subsequently, sometimes 9 if there's a lot of code 60s.
Yes.
Come back to that in a moment. But again, a vagary of this particular race is that the pit stop times change depending on how long you've been out on the circuit. We'll come back to that in a moment as the Falcon number 44 Porsche, which at the moment is deciding that it wants a little place there, 14th at the moment. And looking at the back of Marco Wittmann's number 77 Schubert Motorsport BMW, that seems to have resolved itself. So I'll go back to that point, Johnny, and you've got all the numbers there, because in that first stint, there's a different mandatory stationary time, or pit lane time, should I say, to the seconds and subsequent stops.
I'm expecting for a first stint for cars to come in after 5 laps, 6 laps or 7. No one can do 8 because they've already done a formation lap, yes, at slow speed, but that first stint won't be more than 7 laps, and then that sets your rhythm probably for the rest of the race. 8 laps, 8 laps, 8 laps, all